Well, welcome, folks. You find this bit of news interesting? I was reading today that we have more millionaires in the United States than there are people who live in Sweden.
Wow.
How about that? That's a good way to start your day. The other thing, well, this bomb cyclone is crazy. So what in the world is going on with the weather? But hurricane-force winds and a blizzard are mauling the Midwest. The storm is called a bomb cyclone. Colorado Springs felt a wind gust of 97 miles an hour. And, well, we're going to take a look at that and some other things on the highway. Trains thrown off the track. It's crazy. Terry.
Trailers overturned. Well, the storm shut down the Denver airport, leaving thousands of people stranded. It's also caused at least one death. Washington reporter Jenna Browder reports.
What was supposed to be an ordinary winter storm has turned into a bomb cyclone when atmospheric pressure drops low enough to bring hurricane winds, tornadoes, and severe blizzards. In Colorado, whiteout conditions. Colorado Springs saw one wind gust of 97 miles an hour, the same as a Category 2 hurricane.
I grew up in New Orleans, so I've seen a hurricane, but this is a snow hurricane.
The storm forced Denver International Airport to close all runways, canceling more than 1,300 flights. And on the roads, parts of Interstates 25 and 70 were shut down by crashes, stranding some 1,000 drivers. The storm turned deadly when this Colorado State trooper responded to a crash and was hit by a sliding car. Roughly 500,000 people lost power in Colorado and Texas, winds flipping these small airplanes like toy models. In New Mexico, a funnel cloud caught on video. Near Logan, heavy winds knocked these train cars right off the tracks. Even weather experts are surprised at the storm's ferocity. This meteorologist trying to release a weather balloon in South Dakota.
This time of the year produces these monsters, folks, from time to time. Now, the positive spin on this, if you want to put it that way, is there was so much energy focused with the storm. If you look at the usual tornado outbreaks that occur with these big storms that go up into the plains, very minimal overall.
And the storm is rolling right along, expected to cross the Great Lakes today and tomorrow, bringing rain to the northeast and possible tornadoes to the south. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, something else that's happening. The 737 MAX has been grounded here in the United States. Boeing has sold 5,000 of those things. It is a huge moneymaker. It has been the most popular plane probably they've ever produced. And this is hitting them really hard. John Jessup has more.
That's right, Pat. After mounting pressure, the Federal Aviation Administration grounded those Boeing planes Wednesday. The decision follows the global response already taken by dozens of countries, banning the plane after the Ethiopian Airlines crash Sunday. All 157 people on board were killed. Another MAX 8 plane, an Indonesian Lion Air, crashed 4 months earlier, killing 189. The FAA said the decision was made after enhanced satellite tracking data and new physical evidence on the ground actually linking the movements of the two planes that led to those crashes. Well, the lights are starting to come back on in parts of Caracas, Venezuela's capital, but the extended power outage sent a tidal wave of people fleeing the country. In the border town of Cúcuta, Colombia, thugs paid by Nicolas Maduro's regime are targeting people for robbery and kidnapping. That's where CBN contributing correspondent Chuck Holton had a dangerous encounter.
So the border between Venezuela and Colombia is now officially closed. The bridge that 2 weeks ago when I was here had tens of thousands of people crossing it now is essentially empty. But this is what they call La Trocha. This is how people are getting across now, and as you can see, it has not affected the number of people crossing. They're just now crossing in a very different way. They call this the shortcut.
But for those fleeing Venezuela, crossing illegally is fraught with risk. These people say they're being preyed upon by members of criminal biker gangs called colectivos, who support Nicolas Maduro and charge a fee or even rob people trying to get across the river. And they aren't making empty threats. As I was filming on the riverbank, I was attacked by 3 men who tried to drag me into Venezuela.
Now it's empty, but people are not. Come on, man.
Fortunately, I was able to get away from my attackers, and they fled back across the river. But it was a powerful lesson in how Maduro's brutal regime uses its power against these people every day. From Cúcuta, Colombia, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Thanks, Chuck. The Republican-controlled Senate is expected to pass a resolution blocking President Trump's declaration of a national emergency on the southern border today. The House already approved the resolution last month. The president is expected to veto the measure so he can access $8 billion to build a border wall. If the vote goes as expected, it would be the president's second defeat this week, as the Senate voted Wednesday to end U.S. military involvement in Yemen. Well, Texas Democrat Beto O'Rourke says he's running for president in 2020. The 46-year-old three-term congressman made the announcement in a video recorded from his home with his wife at his side. Beto gained national attention in the 2018 midterm elections when he came within 3 percentage points of upsetting Republican Senator Ted Cruz, raising records amount of cash while mobilizing young people and minorities. Pat?
Thank you. You know, there's an interesting thing going on. The Democrats have a woman who filled out an application. She's a native-born American of Anglo-Saxon descent. And when she filled out an application some years ago, she said she is American Indian. And so you think, all right, we've got a senator who claims to be American Indian. Now we've got an Irishman who has picked up a Mexican name. That Beto is a legion of the Spanish word Roberto. And he is claiming essentially, he's running essentially as a half Mexican, Beto O'Rourke. He's actually a long time, he's Irish and Welsh by all his background, but in order to go after Ted Cruz, he decided he was going to be half Mexican, Beto. So he's kept that name, even though it stands for Roberto, which came from being born in one of the border cities in Texas. And then you've got Kamala Harris. I'm not sure what her background is, but I'm sure it's not whatever they're being claimed. And then before long, we had another president who was the son of a African, well, he was a radical, he was a communist. His name was Obama, and that was a mixed situation. But the thing about Obama was he thought that he had a Messiah complex. And he said, I have a gift. He said that, I have a gift, and my speaking is so gifted. Well, I'm afraid this Beto has said pretty much the same thing in Vanity Fair. Like I've seen a vision, I'm kind of like the Messiah, and I have a call from on high to run. So I don't know how many of these Democrat messiahs we need in our country, but I just as soon not have any of them. John?
Pat, across America, young people are being turned away from from Christianity as some schools and universities question the validity of the Bible. But as Chris Mitchell reports, a new movie is out presenting strong evidence for the Bible's authority and one of its best-known authors.
The new film, Patterns of Evidence, The Moses Controversy, looks at a debate entering today's college classrooms.
The Moses controversy is really the question of, did Moses write the first books of the Bible? And for a lot of Christians, it's not a controversy at all. But as soon as you send your son or daughter off to college or university, they're going to hear a different story.
Film producer Timothy Mahoney says this lack of understanding is rampant in today's higher learning.
It's huge, the number of people in mainstream scholarship that don't believe that Moses was the author of the first books of the Bible. And so they're basically saying, well, this is just a beautiful piece of literature, but it's not real history.
And Mahoney says that's the issue.
The problem with that is that Jesus believes that Moses wrote the first books of the Bible. In fact, Jesus says, for if you believe Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote of me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words?
Mahoney traveled thousands of miles and spent years investigating the Moses question.
What I realized is that if Moses doesn't exist and Moses didn't write these first books of the Bible, this impacts the rest of the Bible.
While many mainstream scholars cast doubt on the history and archaeology of Moses, Mahoney says he can show why they're wrong.
In fact, this film is going to show you Bible-affirming evidence that Moses had the ability to write the first books of the Bible.
With biblical values under assault in today's culture, Mahoney says his project can speak to both believer and skeptic.
Now, if you have a family member that doesn't believe, and you've been looking for an opportunity to bring them to something, such as, or to talk to them about the Bible, this film is a perfect tool for that because it's done very scientifically.
Mahoney says today's generations have doubts and ask tough questions.
But there are answers for these questions. We don't have to lose our sons and daughters, to skepticism.
Mahoney says in order to know God, people need to know His Word, and he hopes his film will tie that understanding together.
It shows that this ability to do exactly what was commanded in the Bible fits the history and the archaeology, matches the Bible. The pattern of evidence fits.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Patterns of Evidence, the Moses Controversy, will be in theaters across the country on March 14th, 16th, and 19th. You can go to cbnnews.com to find a theater near you. Pat, back to you.
Well, there's no question that the Israelites came out of Egypt. There's no question that this group of people was being persecuted by Pharaoh, and they had what was called the Exodus. And the leader of that Exodus was a man named Moses, who had been drawn from the waters. That's where the term came from. He was put in a basket by Pharaoh's daughter, and he was raised in the household of Pharaoh. And the Bible says he was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. So he was a scholar, but he was also a warrior. And he grew up in Pharaoh's house. There's no doubt about that. And so then he went out and came back into Egypt later on, after many years in the wilderness, and he led the people then up into the Promised Land. There's nothing that would be contrary to the fact that he could have been the author of these books. Well, why not? I mean, one is a book of laws, another has to do with the history of the people, and you have a genealogical record of the births of the people. You read all that, and but Genesis goes back to the beginning, and then Exodus talks about coming out of Egypt. Well, why not Moses? I mean, who else could have done it? And it didn't detract in any way the fact that he was a living person. Everybody knows Moses, and there are a whole group of Jewish people who certainly believe in the books of the Bible. Then you've got the Ten Commandments that have been preserved through the years. The Hebrew text of the Old Testament is amazingly preserved. Every letter all the way through is scrutinized by scholars, and that record goes way, way back, and it's a good, authentic record. So I appreciate what these people are doing, but, scholars will do everything they can to distort the truth. That's what's so terrible.
Yeah. Well, and the whole education system has been infiltrated with that kind of doubt and really lack of understanding of all of this. So our kids are really in a compromised scenario.
The root, I keep talking about Teachers College at Columbia, but the Teachers College at Columbia was the source, and the man in charge of it was an atheist, a hardcore atheist, and they trained teachers over and over and over again and have infected the educational system of America. So you have some of the most virulent anti-Christians located in the educational establishment. And I'm pleased to report that Regent University right now is training a new generation of teachers, and they are taking positions of educational leadership all across the country. There's some dedicated, wonderful teachers, and but nevertheless, this Teachers College in Columbia, I think it's lost its impact of what it used to be, but nevertheless, it had a profound impact on the educational system.
Well, it sounds like this film is going to be something worthy of our time.
Absolutely.
And
so
significant.
I didn't get when it's going to be available.
Well, go to cbn.com because all of it is there. You can find out where it's going to be seen in your area. There is a limited viewing, but be sure to take advantage of that and support the film as well.
All right.